What's up guys, welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. I'm your host Caleb. If you guys want to support the channel, you can click on that whatnot link in the description down below. You'll get a free $15 whenever you sign up to spend on some magic cards, and you'll be supporting the channel whenever you do that. Additionally, you can become a patron. Not only will you be supporting the channel, but additionally you'll get to vote on the deck techs I cover. Special shout out to my high contributing patrons, Newsome. You rock. Now, let's get into today's deck tech with Annie Flash. And honestly, I missed this commander when she was first spoiled, but looking at her again, she's going to be incredibly abusable. All we have to do is give her a tap ability. Let's give her something like Leyline Immersion, that way she can tap for 5 mana. And then there's like 50 plus cards that say, hey, go ahead and untap target creature. Now, we're not running all of them, but we are running a lot of them, probably at least 30. So now a third of our deck is just spells that say, hey, untap target creature. So now we can go ahead and kind of just exile our entire library and cast our entire library. Then we can win the game using something like an Ave. That's going to be pretty fun. We also have Area of Flame, Aetherflux Reservoir. We can make her super big and do Chandra's Ignition. There's just a lot of really fun things we can do to end out the game in this deck. I think there's even a new one called Elemental Eruption that's just going to give us a ton of salamanders, and all we have to do is ensure that they have haste. But there's a ton of ways to give all of our creatures haste in these colors. So we just cast our entire library, cast a storm spell, give all of our creatures haste, and win the game. If that sounds like a deck tech you want to get into, let's get into it. Let's kick it off by talking about how we're going to tap our commander. Leyline Immersion is by far the best version of this. It's going to give us 5 mana, and all of our untap effects either cost 2 or 1 mana. So we're basically going to net near infinite mana and be able to cast our entire library. Paradise Mantle and Relic of Legends aren't as good because they can only tap for 1 mana, but they're still going to be very good in this deck. We can pair these with a Stormkiln Artist to get the other mana we need. That way, every time we untap our commander, we're essentially netting 2 mana, 1 from the Stormkiln Artist and 1 from our commander, and again, that will allow us to cast our entire library. Earthcraft and Cryptolith Rites, not as good, but we do have ways to give our creatures haste, and we are also on Faldorn and Young Pyromancer, so as long as these are on the battlefield and we have Cryptolith Rites and haste, we can tap all of those tokens we're creating for more mana, and again, that's going to allow us to get the mana to cast our entire library. Utopia Vow and Careful Cultivation, not the best, but again, going to be super solid in this deck. Now, let's talk about the core of the deck. We have Stormkiln Artist. Now, every time we untap our commander with one of those instant or sorceries untapped effects, we are going to get a treasure token. Season of Growth, now we're drawing additional cards whenever we are untapping our commander. Goldspan Dragon, in a pinch and in the early game, Goldspan Dragon can net us a ton of mana. Our deck is full of a bunch of useless instant and sorcery spells that just untap a creature. So any way we can utilize those without using our commander, we're definitely going to throw it in here. Experimental Frenzy is going to be amazing here. We don't really need to cast spells from our hand since we're exiling everything, and then this is just going to allow us to dig deeper and get those untapped spells that we need. Faldorn and Young Pyromancer will generate a board state. This does go insane with Earthcraft or Cryptolith Rites with haste enablers on the battlefield. Ave Progenitor Ooze is one of the ways we win the game. We just cast Ave. Ave has Storm. We're going to get an instant board state. All we have to do is give these Aves haste and we win the game. Elemental Eruption, very similar. This has Storm. We're going to create a ton of Dragon Elementals. All we have to do is give them haste and we've won the game. Mass Hysteria is one of the cards we're going to use to give all of our creatures haste. We do have Aetherflux Reservoir as well. If we cast enough spells, this can just start Death Starring people. Smoldering Egg is going to swap over into Ashmouth Dragon, and then we're going to start dealing damage to all of our opponent's creatures. Once the board's wiped, we can start dealing damage to people's face. Delayed Fire Blast is an amazing board wipe in this deck. Sometimes we're just not going to get there, but then wiping the entire board and then passing the turn is a solid way to ensure that our opponents are going to have a tough time rebuilding. We're also on Chandra's Ignition for the same reason. A lot of these untap effects do buff our commander up a little bit, so we can get our commander big enough and then cast a Chandra's Ignition, wiping the entire board, and then we just pass the turn and try next turn. Underworld Breach seemed necessary here in case we need to get any of those storm cards back from our graveyard, or if we need to cast any of our key pieces back from our graveyard, Underworld Breach is going to ensure that we get there. And then we're just going to have a ton of fodder in our graveyard as well, due to all of these weird untapped cantrip cards in our graveyard. Noxious Revival can get anything we need from the graveyard on top of our library. This is going to pair really good with our commander because we cast Noxious Revival, we tap our commander, and then boom, it exiles what we need off the top of our library so we can get access to it that turn. Worldly Tutor and Enlightened Tutor are in the deck just to add some consistency. This is a very weird strategy, so we do need our key pieces for it to work. We can grab our Stormkiln Artist, or with Enlightened Tutor, we can grab our Leyline. Anything that we need to really make this janky deck work and go off, these are going to find it. Faithless Looting, just for some early card advantage, get rid of those useless untap effects, get us into our ramp cards, that way we can get our commander on the battlefield. From there, I tried to go really efficient with our card advantage. Honestly, there's not a lot of card advantage that synergizes with our commander, so we have to go kind of generic with it. Esper Sentinel, Sylvan Library, very efficient, come down very early, which is what we need in this deck. We need card advantage early, and we need to make sure that we're drawing into our lands, that way we can cast our commander a little bit ahead of curve. Smuggler's Share doesn't really care what the deck is doing, but it's going to get us some card advantage, and it's going to get us some treasure tokens to get us into our commander a little bit quicker. Minkskin Boo is just some very solid card advantage that can kind of double as removal. Reforge the Soul, Wheel of Misfortune, really good if you've got a handful of untapping effects and you need to draw into ramp to get your commander on the battlefield. Fire a wheel effect off, and it's going to draw you into hopefully more ramp and key pieces to get your strategy going. Jessica's Will, really good for ramping us into our commander, or just going off once we are trying to win on that insane storm turn. Moving on, I'm not going to bore you with every untapped spell in the deck, but there is some very efficient ones that have some utility, so we will go over them. Legolas's Quick Reflection, now this can essentially wipe the entire board, because every time we tap our commander, we're going to be dealing damage. So not only is this a board wipe, but additionally, it gives us protection as well, which again, they do kind of want to kill your commander. They're going to see this deck go off once, and then your commander is probably going to be a target. Luckily, it has flash, so that's going to mitigate some of that issue. Prepare and Aftermath, again, another solid untap spell that can double as removal. Emerald Charm, untap spell, also removal. I also included several untap effects that untap all of our creatures. We are on Cryptolith Rites and we are on Earthcraft, so in that scenario, it's going to be good to untap all of our creatures, that way we get additional mana. So again, I shoved in as many untap all creature effects as possible because we don't have a lot of synergy with having our creatures being the target of spells, just because a lot of those effects care if your opponents target your spells, not if we target our spells. So yes, this is going to add efficiencies to the deck and hopefully generate us a ton of mana. With that being said, that is going to bring us to the end of the video, guys. Thank you guys for watching. I'm really curious what you think about this commander. Honestly, super interesting. Kind of falls apart if you remove the commander, but other than that, this is a really unique strategy that's kind of fun. We've got a Naya Storm deck now. Last but not least, I would like to thank my patrons, Newsome, Excessum, Chicken Salad, and Praetor. You guys are amazing. I appreciate you guys a ton. I hope this helped you in your deck building endeavors, and I will see you in the next one.